Ah, the Battle of Crecy. Now that was a mess. Picture this. Thousands of heavily armored knights, clanking, snorting, proud as peacocks, charging full speed into a muddy slope covered with English peasants holding long wooden sticks. Spoiler alert, the sticks win. But before we dive in, I must ask, if you're a fan of medieval misfortunes, royal regrets, and the occasional peasant uprising, you'd best hit that like button, subscribe to my humble court, aka this channel, and leave your thoughts below. Have you ever seen a knight outwitted by a farmer? Trust me, you're about to. Now, allow me, King Arthur, yes, that one, still very much alive in spirit and mildly annoyed no one listens to monarchs anymore, to guide you through one of the most absurd and humiliating defeats in chivalric history, the Battle of Crecy, fought in the fateful year of 1346. It all began with a French king named Philip VI, who clearly hadn't read the memo that said charging uphill into mud is a bad idea. He was upset, understandably so, because Edward III of England had brought an entire army into France uninvited. Not exactly the most neighborly of gestures. But Edward had his reasons. Dynastic claims, taxes, that sort of royal pettiness. You know how we monarchs are. So Philip assembled the full might of France. Knights, nobles, crossbowmen, mercenaries, you name it, he brought it. It was like a medieval Comic-Con, but with fewer costumes and more actual swords. Estimates say over 30,000 men followed him, confident that chivalry, nobility, and good old-fashioned brute force would win the day. Edward, on the other hand, had about 12,000 men, and a cunning plan. Rather than rely on flashy armor or noble blood, he trusted in something far more terrifying: English longbowmen. These lads had been trained since boyhood to pull a bow strong enough to skewer a knight like a roasted pig on market day. The English positioned themselves atop a hill near Crecy, dug in, calm, and, dare I say, smug. Now here comes the comedy. The French, too proud to wait or think, decided to charge, repeatedly, across open fields, into the wind, through the mud, while being shot at by thousands of longbows firing arrows at the rate of 6 per minute. Let that sink in. First came the Genoese crossbowmen, hired mercenaries. But alas, it rained the night before, and their bowstrings were soaked, useless. They fired a few sad bolts, then turned tail, only to be cut down by their own allies for retreating. That's right. The French knights behind them killed them for being too reasonable. Brilliant start. Then came the cavalry, proud, brave, and thundering forward like a drunken herd of metal cows. And then, thwap, 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 arrows rained down like divine judgment. Horses fell, riders flailed, armor clanked. It was less a charge and more a series of very expensive pratfalls. But did the French stop? Of course not. They charged again, and again, and again, 17 times by some accounts. 17! That's not bravery, that's medieval madness. By nightfall, the field was a bloody mess. Over 2,500 French nobles were dead, including the blind king of Bohemia, who insisted on being led into battle by his knights. A noble gesture, a terrible strategy. Edward, meanwhile, lost maybe 300 men. The longbow had proven what no knight wanted to believe. Valor alone doesn't beat physics. Crecy was more than a battlefield. It was a turning point. It marked the slow death of the mounted knight's dominance. No longer could heavy armor and noble birth guarantee victory. War was changing. Arrows didn't care about your title. A muddy hill and a wooden bow humbled an entire class of warriors that had ruled Europe for centuries. So, dear viewer, the next time someone boasts about honor and steel, remind them of Crecy. And if you enjoyed watching thousands of knights meet their match thanks to commoners with long sticks, do leave a comment below. Which side would you have fought for? And would you have stayed to charge a 17th time? And if this tale has pleased thee, give it a like. Subscribe to my royal ramblings and return for more history served with a side of irony. I am King Arthur, and sometimes I think the peasants had the right idea all along.